And we're back. Welcome back to the Platinum Truth. This is Mike Martin. We're back for another show. Today we're going to be doing a reaction video. We're going to be taking a look at Al Jazeera, the way they cover this Iran war, how they look at things, how they are communicating with their audience to shape their mind, let them know how they should be thinking, and basically propagandizing them on behalf of the Iranian regime, the Islamic community, first and foremost, the Middle East, as well as their other audiences in the Muslim world. We're going to be taking a look at a show called The Take. It is the single biggest podcast on Al Jazeera, on Al Jazeera English television. It is something that gets a lot of attention. They've been doing it for a while. They have a lot of clout on Al Jazeera, this show does, and in the Islamic Muslim world. So we're going to be listening to the way they talk about the Iran war. They talk about America. They talk about the rest of the world. And I'm going to be going into a little bit of a details on what type of things they're looking to shift the minds of when it comes to their audience and how they do that. Okay, we're gonna keep exposing Al Jazeera. This is our first episode doing so, and it's one of my hobbies is to watch Al Jazeera English, the English version, the English channel. That, by the way, is a watered down version from the regular Al Jazeera in Arabic. They need to water down the extremism that happens even more so on the Arabic version. So, anyways, enough talking. Let's get to it. We're going to jump right into it.
Welcome to the truth, the platinum truth. Are you ready? Live from Miami, Florida, USA, and broadcasting around the world. You're listening to the Platinum Truth Podcast, the show that covers everything going on that you need to know about. The people have voted. Are you ready? And now, here's your host, Mike Martin.
Right. Let's jump right in. So just a quick description on this show. As I mentioned, we're going to be covering our favorite news channel, Al Jazeera, or what I like to call Al Jizzy or Jizzy. Just sounds a little hipper. But so this show is called The Take. Al Jazeera describes it as their flagship podcast that makes all global news intimate in 20 minutes, 5 days a week. So this sounds like one of their podcasts, if not the podcast for Al Jazeera, that is sort of the most celebrated and respected. A little bit more about the show on the Al Jazeera website. The Take is a daily interview driven international news podcast hosted by award winning journalist Malika Bilal, who we'll show you in a second. Each episode focuses on conversation with journalists and people directly impacted by the news of the day, offering our listeners the context necessary to understand what's in the headlines. So their audience are typically Middle Easterners, Muslims, Arabs, all of the above. International community is so this crowd is sort of scattered, probably all the way to places like I said, the Middle East. North Africa has a lot of Muslims and Arabs. Indonesia, the number one Islamic nation in the world as far as population goes. So they also describe it and go on to say, with millions of global listeners, it's clear the conversations we're having on The Take are worth hearing. And critics think so too. So they are saying that even the people who disagree with their take also think this is an important show. The show has won the Online Journalism Awards, the Signal Awards, Lovey Awards, and Anthem Awards, among others. Now, just being totally realistic, there's about 1 million different journalism awards. They're made up by anyone and everyone. There's organizations that make them up so they can give them to their own people. I wouldn't read too much into that. But let's start the broadcast and get going here. So we're gonna jump right in. She's gonna do a quick intro. She's gonna introduce her guest, and then we'll hear what they have to say about the war.
To put it all in context, we're breaking down the war and the information war.
I'm Imran Khan, and I'm a senior correspondent and senior anchor with Al Jazeera English.
Imran Khan, welcome back to The Take. It is Sunday morning in Doha, and you are coming off shift anchoring for Al Jazeera English, which means you have been presenting to the world as the U.S. and Israel take us all into uncharted territory with their strikes on Iran. And here's how you open your
So it sounds like he's a senior correspondent, senior anchor. What's the difference? Correspondent, I imagine, is somebody who goes and covers the news reports from the different areas of the world. Senior anchor is someone who's sitting at a desk in a studio. So he's senior, which means very well respected in at least Al Jazeera's neighborhood and community. So he is a senior Jizzy.
first broadcast. U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, is dead. You later told the world live when this was confirmed by Iran. Momentous moments all around. So what is on your mind at this moment?
Well, anytime a huge story happens, before you can explain it to anybody else, you have to understand it yourself.
Great idea.
And we've been expecting something to happen between Iran and the US, but the US was confident that the talks were taking place. Certainly up until this week, the Omani mediator, Badr al-Basaidi, was, very confident that they were going to get a deal. So that kind of, relaxed people. Maybe this won't escalate into a war. And then suddenly,
They clearly have not been listening to Donald Trump and don't know him very well. A couple months back, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, when Donald Trump told the Iranian people, came out publicly and said, help is on the way. That should have told everybody who knows even a little bit about who Donald Trump is that he was going to take action. And it was probably not going to be just some bombs going off, or let's put it this way, a repeat of the 12-day war that happened last summer. So personally, when I heard him say that, I believed it was on. I also knew that if it's going to be on, it's not going to be a repeat of the 12-day war, because it just you're not going to you did a bunch of stuff. You were successful in the 12-day war. What is there left to do that you couldn't have done in the 12-day war? Nothing. If you achieved those objectives that you went out for, so therefore, if you're going to re-engage, you're going to do so with different objectives. The only thing left to achieve after that is to overthrow the regime, something that should have been done a long time ago, because of this ongoing war. And that's something I want to clarify real quick. This has been an ongoing war. This has been a proxy war that has been going on since 79. 47 years. Make no mistake, this is a war. It always has been a war. Wars aren't always one-on-one on the battlefield. There's various ways of going to war, fighting kinetic wars. It just happened to be the case that for over 47 years, they've been at war, or U.S. has been at war with Iran, the West has been at war with Iran, and they've done and kinetic wars, but they've typically used proxies, be that Israel for the United States and the West, or Hezbollah, Hamas, all kinds of other radical Islamic groups for the Iranians. So the war has been on for 47 years. And like I said, when Donald Trump said he's going to come rescue, help is on the way to the Persian people, if you know anything, if you've been paying attention to Donald Trump, you understood what that meant. That means that the military is going to come in. They're going to have a different objective than the last time, and the delay is simply a matter of getting the resources, your fighting power, your military properly in place so as to A, achieve success, and B, reduce the cost of that success. Lives lost, the duration, amount of things you're going to be throwing at the enemy. So it's been on for a while. This started basically on the 12-day war. It took a little bit of a break. Uh, Basically a unilateral ceasefire because the United States could have kept going. They didn't need Iran's permission. And it was just a little break. It was a break to see what they would react like, but also to move the rest of the resources in place, the military might in place. Anyways.
24 hours ago, Donald Trump released this Truth Social video. And it's extraordinary. It's 8 minutes long, and he declares war against Iran.
The United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated.
Not a surgical strike, not an attack against a nuclear plant, not something that shows America's power but gets everybody back to the negotiating table. And then throughout the night, you're seeing attacks in Iran. Then you're hearing the Israelis are saying the
So I don't know. I mean, when he said it sounded like there was going to be some military action to get people back to the negotiating table. I mean, there was no indication of that. If Trump and if Trump wanted to get the Iranians back to the negotiating table, why didn't he just do that after the 12-day war? Well, he did. He saw that it didn't work. What is there left to do? He 2 weeks before this action, he said to them, "Hey, you got 2 weeks. Show us you're serious. Don't do what you've always been doing, which is procrastinating, dishonesty, excuse me, all this stuff. We need to see something different." And if the Iranians were half intelligent and they understood Trump, they would have realized this is not the same president as all the other ones. And frankly, it's not even the same one that was president in 2016 to 2020, because that was kind of like phase one of Trump's Iranian plan. I'm not saying he changed his mind or thought anything different about Iran. I don't think he did. But that was phase one. It's kind of like try this stuff out. We'll see how it goes. We'll collect some intelligence, and then this is something different now. Second presidency, right from day one, was a totally different approach on Iran, and it was always going to be. If he won the presidency and wasn't cheated in 2020, um, he would have just incorporated the same strategy. Third year, fourth year, barring COVID not happening. So it would have been a continuation. It just would have got here eventually, anyways.
the supreme leader of Iran has been killed in a strike.
This morning, a powerful strike was launched and destroyed in the heart of Tehran, the compound of the tyrant Khamenei. For 3.5 decades, this tyrant dispatched terrorism across the world, made his own people miserable, and worked constantly and tirelessly on a program to annihilate the state of Israel. That plan is there no longer.
And then
So quickly, Netanyahu's words. He is very serious in what he's talking about. He's very literal. He wasn't pulling any punches. He sounds like he always did, but there's something different about this. You could tell he was saying things in a way that stuff was about to go down a little bit differently this time. I mean, that's what I took from it. That was my instincts.
Donald Trump says it, and then the Iranians then confirm it. This was always a red line that the Iranians said, if this ever happens, then all bets are off.
I'm telling Trump and Netanyahu, these two filthy criminals and their agents, very openly and transparently, you have crossed our red line and must pay the price.
And all bets are off.
Nothing surprising there. Of course, all bets are off, and when you go and you launch you kill the leader of a country.
And the Iranian response is taking place right now, has been taking place since the first missile landed, the joint US-Israel missile landed. But now it's so much bigger than it was. But it feels like that the Americans have miscalculated. And the reason I say that is because I don't know what the second part of the plan is, because we didn't think they would go this far.
Okay, so what are you talking about? You're surprised they went this far, dude. 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before the invasion, 2 weeks before the onset of this conflict, this war, uh, Trump was saying out loud, "Hey, this is gonna get deadly serious. This is going to be on. This isn't gonna be like in the past. You got 2 weeks. You're not gonna do the usual stuff for 2 weeks, and we're just gonna bomb you, and that's it." So, don't know what this dude is talking about, that he's surprised. He has not been paying attention. He does not know Trump. For a senior correspondent and senior anchor, dude, you need to do some more research into Donald Trump and what's going on in America for you to be surprised.
So
And by the way, when he says they miscalculated, Trump miscalculated, the Americans miscalculated, because I don't know how they're going to go about this, and I don't know how they're going to win, and I don't know what they're going to do next. Why would it be an automatic miscalculation on Trump's part? Because you don't understand what Trump's going to do, and you're not aware of it. You don't have access to that information. Nobody does except for Trump and all the people sitting around him making these plans. There are a lot of things you don't know. Have some whatever to understand that just because you don't know something doesn't mean it's odd, doesn't mean they're going to fail, doesn't mean they miscalculated. I think that's absurd. They know exactly what they're doing. They've been planning this out at least for 2 weeks in the near term things that are about to go down. But specifically, they've been playing this out for a year since Donald Trump's presidency. He got elected. Once he got elected, it was like, okay, it's on with Iran. What are we going to do? What are the plans? Boom, put everything in place. But also, the 4 years prior, the 20 years prior with every president before that, this is not something where the military and the intelligence services and all of the people involved, including the allies, have been sitting around going, well, one day we're going to figure this out. If we ever go to war, we'll decide then what to do. That's not how things work. The way things work is that you have an adversary, one day you're probably going to go to war, or you may go to war, you even may go to war. You put a plan in place. You have a plan already in place. That goes with every single potential existing situation that could happen. China invading Taiwan, they have a plan in place. They have 5 plans in place. There's always a plan. So they don't make a plan once something happens, or 2 weeks before, or right when they decide. They've always had a plan. Institutionally, as a government, no matter who's president, there has always been a plan. That plan is handed to the president from the CIA, from the military. It's always been there. It just changes a little bit depending on how much time goes by, what changes in Iran, what changes around the world. There's always been a plan, not just a plan. It's plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. That's how things work. If it didn't work that way, you wouldn't have an empire. You wouldn't be able to retain an empire, let alone be an empire. You have an empire, and you're able to have that empire for 100 years, or at least since World War One, which is actually 100 years plus now, because you have a million plans in place on every potential situation. If you did it, you'd never be an empire. And if you managed to stumble into being an empire, you'd be there for like 5 years or 2 years or whatever, because you're just not very smart.
They say we want regime change in Iran. What does that look like? We don't know, because we're in.
Nor should you. Why would you know? Why would you? You think the military, you think it's intelligent for Trump and everybody else, President Trump and everyone else to go, "Hey, we're going to tell everybody, including our adversaries by extension, what our plans are for regime change. If we want to have regime change, what it's going to look like. We're going to tell our enemy that, decrease our chances, increase our chance of success, increase our costs, our deaths, the amount of money we're going to have to spend, because we just want this dude to know and her to know what's going on. We feel obligated. We don't even feel obligated to tell the American people, because you want a decisive victory. You want less casualties. You want their chances to succeed to be as high as possible. And you're not going to decrease that simply because you feel like you have to tell the American people everything, every detail.
Uncharted territory right now. You've knocked
Yeah.
out the Supreme Leader. There will be a hierarchical change. So succession is guaranteed. There will be a new Supreme Leader. That's all in the Constitution. It's all already negotiated. So that will be announced in the next few days. But then Donald Trump is saying this is your chance to go out and topple the regime. If you're members of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the loyalists to the Ayatollah, you can surrender and you'll be given immunity. That hasn't happened. So
Hmm.
It hasn't happened. Okay, let's remember this program is about 4 days into the war. It hasn't happened yet. How about it doesn't make sense that it would even happen yet? Like, what are you talking about? It hasn't happened yet. First of all, it can happen. It's on the table. It's always been on the table. Um, come forward, put your guns down, leave the country, all that stuff. That's always on the table. You don't have to say it. It's always on the table. Just walk out, say it, we're done. That's it. But 4 days in, come on, dude. Like, you got a lot more leverage to obtain. The United States has a lot more leverage to obtain. Of course, you're going to go out there and completely annihilate your enemy, completely destroy their desire to fight, their ability to think they have any chance, and then you can come out and say it for the first time. But you also know, because you've done this as a country, as a military, you're going to put that on the table several times. And as you go down this road of doing what you need to do, achieving your strategic objectives, increasing the likelihood of your success, you're going to keep putting on the table until you say, okay, now we don't need to say it anymore, and actually we're just going to go full force. We don't need to negotiate. We have all the cards. We don't need to negotiate. We don't need to give you anything back. The fact that you're going to save your own life is enough for you to have to make that choice, for you to want to make that choice. We don't have to offer you shit anymore. That's how much we're winning. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. I think he's either ignorant or he's being dishonest. I kind of think he's ignorant. Like, I don't know. There's no real reason why he's lying to the audience in this manner. I just don't think he's very bright. And for a senior correspondent, senior anchor, Jizzy, this is the best you got. I mean, this woman's just nodding along. She doesn't know. She doesn't know shit. She's just gonna nod at anything he says. But he doesn't sound very intelligent, and he's the senior correspondent, the senior anchor.
ultimately, I think the regime will certainly survive in the very short term. But this idea of regime change, it's not regime change, it's decapitation. All you've done is kill one person, and we don't know who the next person is going to be. And likely that he's going to be a lot more hard line because the Iranians have realized that they can't trust the Americans. Every Iranian I've spoken to, on air, off air, has said, we will never trust the Americans ever again because all they did was lie to us and, wait.
That should tell you something. If every Iranian he's spoken to off the air dislikes America, doesn't trust them, that tells you something about him. Who is he hanging out with? What kind of people does he talk to? Who's his crowd? His crowd is the tiny amount of Iranians in Iran that despise America, don't trust them, hate them. It's their enemy. Therefore, his crowd is, by definition, by extension, the kind of people who like the Islamic regime, support the Islamic regime, support putting their women in these things here. Um, he just gave himself away. My audience needs to understand this, that this guy is a pro-regime radical. He just told you he is. He says everyone I talk to. Now, let me tell you something about everyone I talk to. I have not met a single Iranian, not even one, a single Iranian that not just doesn't support the Islamic regime, but instead I haven't met one that doesn't despise the Islamic regime, doesn't basically almost foam at the mouth, sorry, foam at the mouth with disgust and passion about how much they despise the Islamic occupation of Iran. Remember, Persians, that's who Iranians are. They're Persians. That's their background. That's who they are. Beyond their whole nation state name, they're Persians. They haven't historically always been Muslims. That's a recent thing. That's going back a few centuries to the days of Muhammad. But as far as a government is concerned, as a national regime, that's only going back 47 years. That's why they call it the Islamic occupation of Iran. Islam has occupied the Persians and forced Islam down their throats, which is, again, if you look at the rest of the world, you know anything about what's been going on. Anywhere Islam has gone, that place has turned into shit. It's gone way worse. Let's continue after this guy told us a lot about his support for the Iranian regime and who he talks to.
With the false hope that negotiations were working until they got all their military assets in the region, and now they're destroying us.
The thing that's so striking about this is the timing you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of Iranian people that realize that the Americans weren't going to play again. They weren't going to play the game again, negotiating, being promised by the Iranian regime they're not going to do nuclear weapons, them lying, them going back negotiating table, and then every step of the way, the Iranians are getting closer and closer and closer while they play this game to having a nuclear. Yes, it's true. Eventually, the Americans, the Iranian people, I guess, are smart enough to understand. Eventually, the Americans are going to go, okay, you want to play this game? You want to play the fake negotiation game, the lying negotiation game? We'll play it too. We'll do the same thing you guys have been doing for 47 years. But you know what? We'll just do it this one time and it will be the end of you. Hopefully, this is our goal. So we'll do the same thing you've been doing for 47 years. We'll do it once. Somehow this guy looks at the Americans, the American government, Trump, by doing the thing they've been doing for 47 years, doing it once. The Americans are the scumbags for doing it. You and your regime have been doing it for 47 years over and over again, but you're not the scumbags for doing it for 47 years. So, yes, the Americans finally said Trump is smart enough to go, you want to play that game? You want to play the bullshit negotiation game? We'll play it too. We're going to use this time to get our military might, our resources in place, and you better make a deal. You better make a deal.
And the Omani foreign minister. So on Friday, we
Yeah.
saw him on American television up on CBS News. This is Badr bin Hamid Al Busaidi, who went on TV and said, we are so close to a deal. And he explained the things, the concessions that Iran was willing to give up to make to reach this deal.
What
It doesn't matter what concessions they're going to give up. They say they're going to give up if they're lying the entire time and are just going to pursue nuclear weapons under the table. It doesn't matter if that negotiation, if you believe that negotiation was going so amazingly, we're making progress. The game was up. The game was up long time ago. The Americans knew, the rest of the world knew, the Western world knew. These guys are just going to lie. They're just going to lie. They're going to say whatever it takes to not have an existential military force come their way, and then they're going to cheat on it. So it doesn't matter that this guy here, the Omani guy, said, "Oh, it was going so well. I'm surprised they actually launched an invasion or a military action. It was going so well." Anyone with a brain and a sense and an idea of history knows that the Iranians were always going to make it so it's going so well, quote unquote. But it never is actually going well because they're lying to you.
Has Iran agreed to you that they have never done before? Can you give us any sense?
The single most important achievement, I believe, is the agreement that Iran will never ever have a nuclear material that will create a bomb.
Said by every single nation who has ever acquired a nuclear bomb, but when they first said, "Oh, we want one," and then we're told you don't have, well, you're not going to get one, or there's going to be a war. Every single one of them go like, say, "Oh, okay, we don't want one. We don't want one." They all end up getting it. Pakistan, North Korea, uh, all of the bad guys always lie and say, "Okay, we're not going to go after it." Meanwhile, they secretly, under the table, in underground, they keep working on it. So again, this guy, are you really that dumb? Or are you not that dumb and you're just being dishonest? You're representing your allies, the Iranians, in a favorable light when you know damn well they were always going to cheat. They have always been cheating. Anyone who wants a nuclear weapon and is going to be permitted to get one is always going to lie that they don't want one. They're not going to do it. This guy is smart enough. He would never make it in his position if he wasn't smart to be there. So he's smart enough. He's just being dishonest.
This is, I think, a big achievement. This is something that is not in the old deal that was negotiated during President Obama.
It wasn't in the old deal that the Iranians said they were never going to acquire nuclear weapons. They don't want to acquire nuclear weapons. They're not going to do it. They've been saying that for 47 years. What the hell are you talking about? It wasn't in the old deal. That was the point of the old deal. Why do you think the deal was made? The deal was made because the Iranians, according to Obama, foolish Obama, said, "Okay, we're not going to go after nukes." They've said this for 47 years. What are you talking about? It wasn't in that last deal or prior deals.
Last time.
And then we saw the strikes. What do
That game is over. Lies are over. You're not going to tell the same lie over and over again and get caught over and over again. And everyone's just going to keep believing you.
you make of that?
It was worse than that because there are technical talks scheduled in Vienna on Monday. When you get to technical talks, you're in the last lap of the race.
Not really. That's not true either. You could have technical. Who's to say you can't have technical talks for a year? Who's to say you can't have technical talks that should take a week, but one party draws it out because they're benefiting from drawing out. They make excuses. They're gonna say this, that, or the other thing is why it's got to take longer, or they got to delay. They got to do this. It's not automatic that you're in that stage. It's just going to be real quick. There's nothing that makes that the truth.
So everybody's like really confident. And then a war starts that no one saw coming
That's the smart way of doing a war.
in the
Remember when Bush talked about going into Iraq for a year before he did it, and he said he's going to do it, and he basically set the groundwork publicly for a year? That's the stupid way of doing things. That's the way that is going to cost you double, triple the lives, double, triple the amount of money. It's going to decrease your chance of success. You're telling the enemy you're going to invade a year before, a month before, a day before even. That's idiotic. No one does that except for stupid people. And we've had lots of stupid people in power. And just because we've had stupid people in power as presidents doesn't mean we should continue to have stupid people in power.
scale, and the justification being we've been at war, as Donald Trump said, we've been at war with Iran for 47 years, which is going to come as a surprise to most Americans. And
It's not a surprise. It's a surprise to most Americans that don't watch world affairs. Yeah, it is then. But hey, there's people who have stuff to do. They're trying to live their life, they're trying to raise their kids, blah blah blah. It doesn't mean they're not necessarily have to be watching what's going on with Iran and the United States. They should be, but maybe they're not. That's okay too. Leave it to the I believe you leave it to the people who are better informed. So it isn't the case that everybody should vote. If you actually don't know what's going on, you shouldn't vote. So it's fine if people don't know exactly what's going on with Iran and that we've been at war with Iran. The West has been at war with Iran for 47 years. It's fine. Leave it to the people who are interested, who want to know about it, and let those people make the decisions.
We want regime change. Well, no, you didn't say those things before. So were
Love this shot, by the way. I have to give it to this setup here of hers. I like this shot. Hopefully one day I can have this shot. You know, as we get this podcast bigger. And by the way, this is my chance for me to say, please like and subscribe to this channel. The more you do, the more you comment, the more engagement there is for this channel, the more we could get it built up, and hopefully we could start having more resources in place to have great shots like this.
you negotiating in bad faith to basically
Look at the production on this. It's like boom, boom, boom. Different shots. Love it. I have to give it to Jizzy, but you know it's a big outfit. It is a lot of cash being thrown at Jizzy.
stall Iran until you got all your military assets in the region, and then, which is the big question, is are you simply waging Israel's war for them? Because everything that you were negotiating for when you did the initial deal in 2015 with Iran was working.
That's beyond retarded. It was working. You know who it was working for? You know who says it was working? The Iranians say it was working. A person who supports the Iranian government says it's working. It was working for the Iranians because they got to build their nuclear weapon underground, and they were given a bunch of cash by that moron Obama, pallets of cash, and they got to still build their nuclear weapons and were left untouched. So, of course, this guy and the Iranian government is going to say everything was fine. We don't need a war. Everything was fine. Well, if they're building nuclear weapons, guess who it's not fine for? The people who have a problem with them having nuclear weapons. But to this guy, it was fine. Everything was going beautifully. Yeah, it was for you, for the government you like, for the Islamic cause. Yeah, it was. But not for normal, sane people who don't want to have proliferation of nuclear weapons and a insane regime having those nuclear weapons, a regime that believes in order for us to all go to their crazy place of whatever amount of virgins and goats roaming around, that they gotta have to kill the Jews and the Christians and the rest of the world first. How do you do it best? With a nuclear weapon? Yeah, you don't leave a nuclear weapon to those kind of people either. So what a dumb thing to say, that everything was fine.
And then Donald Trump pulled out of that. But everything that they were talking about now is everything that Israel's been asking for, which
And just because Israel is aligned with American goals and desires doesn't mean the American government is fighting a war on their behalf. If the Americans were not benefiting from this war at all, then you may be able to say that. But you can't say that in reality. The Iranians chant death to America, death to Israel, both of them. So stop playing this game like there was no conflict between America and Iran. There was no Iranian government saying they're going to destroy America, the big Satan and the little Satan. Israel will either die first or die later, whatever. But the Iranian government, the regime, the Islamic cause is against the Americans as well, and mostly so because that's the quote unquote big Satan.
is, no support for Iran's proxies and the ballistic missile program to be destroyed. So who are you actually fighting for?
America's fighting for America, clearly. If the Iranian government falls, it is immensely immensely beneficial to America. Immensely. It is more beneficial to America than anyone else by far. And it may be second most beneficial to Israel, but that doesn't change the fact you cannot then just say, well, that doesn't mean it's beneficial. That's not beneficial to America. That's idiotic.
Okay, great question there. Another question
Stupid question, actually.
is
It's a great question if you're dumb.
what you touched on, this justification that the US has presented. And so I want to dive into that just a little bit more, because when thinking about what our audience needs to know today, something I think the Al Jazeera audience really understands is that there is war and then there is the information war. So the second thing that you did when you started your broadcast was read a post on Donald Trump's personal social media platform, Truth Social, in which he wrote, Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. And earlier you talked about how this announcement that the US had joined Israel in striking Iran also happened on Truth Social. Donald Trump announced it from his private club, Mar-a-Lago, wearing a baseball cap that read USA. What do you make of the US narrative here? What are we supposed to take from that?
Firstly, Iran isn't threatening the US homeland.
Are you crazy? So for 47 years, they've been saying that they're going to obliterate America, destroy America, the evil big Satan, and the rest of the world, and Islam will prevail, and it'll be glorious. But no, they're not a threat at all. Was that just all hyperbole, bro? Was that just all hyperbole? It was just all fun and games. Ha ha. Let's just say a bunch of shit that we don't mean for 47 years and multiples of different people in Iran saying it.
There are
See, this is Jizzy. This is Al Jizzy. This is what they do. This is why you have all of these Arabs and Muslims talking about how bad America is, how evil America, how there's no Islam and Iran and all these other Muslim countries. They're not doing anything. We're not doing anything. We just want to be left alone. That's why some of these people actually believe this, because of people like this bullshitting them.
16 US, at least 16 US military bases that surround Iran. So who's threatening who?
Good. The country that from inception of this regime said death to America and started and built all these proxy armies around the world, terrorist organizations around the world, and has implemented terrorism onto America, onto Americans throughout this 47 years. Multiple examples. Yes, you're going to start to do something about it. Yes, you're going to want to see that government change. Yes, you're going to put in place a plan to one day potentially take out that government, hopefully, because your job is to protect your people. So, yes, you're going to put bases around this terrible country that has declared war on you 47 years and every day since.
That is a question that the audience really needs to.
By the way, this idea that that's a bad thing that you put American bases around your enemy, guess what Iran would do if it could? It would do the same. And that's exactly what it's trying to do with its proxy terrorist groups. Those are essentially military bases in different parts of the world, be that Lebanon, be that Syria, be that the Palestinian areas like Gaza, the West Bank with Hamas. Hezbollah's in Lebanon, Syria, Iran, all kinds of other places. They're even in South America. This is what they're doing. They're doing the exact equivalent. It's essentially a military base. When you have groups in other parts of the world launching attacks against their enemy, same thing. There's no different. This guy's totally dishonest.
Look into. Where are the Americans? Who's threatening the Americans? So
no one. Iran loves the mullahs and the Ayatollah. They love America.
It is down to America's strongest ally, which is Israel. It's defending Israel, but
defending Israel while defending America as well. You can actually have two. I think this guy, like he can lie to his people because he knows his people are not very smart. So they'll believe stupid lies, not even intelligent ones. That Iran has no problem with America.
Every other president in recent history, certainly since the State of Israel was formed in 1948, has taken the view that, yes, Israel needs to be defended. Of course, it has the right to defend itself, but we also have other allies in the region, and they also have to be taken into consideration. That's all gone out the window now. But
You know, when somebody supports the people who have represented your government and they've had bad plans, bad ideas, bad strategies, when this guy supports those people with bad plans, bad ideas, bad strategies for America and likes those people, again, it tells you something. It tells you what side he's on. It tells you who he's rooting for. Yeah, he loves stupid American presidents, the ones that are dumb, like Joe Biden, the ones that are a failure, the ones that cannot protect their citizens, do ridiculously dumb things for their own country. This guy loves Joe Biden because, hey, Joe Biden's a failure when it comes to protecting his people and standing up for America and Americans.
what he's also done in this kind of information war that we're talking about is put all his cards out on the table. Now, when you're an American ally, you want to, communication is the absolute key. The other allies,
As opposed to when is communication not the key?
Qatar, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, were pushing forward the negotiations. They were pushing forward.
Qatar is a supporter of Iran at the end of the day. Turkey is a supporter of Iran at the end of the day. Of course, they want to push negotiations. They want to stall them out. They want to give Iran a chance to get off the hook, keep building nuclear weapons, keep doing what they've been doing for 47 years. If you're going to point to Iran's allies and say, hey, look at these guys, they want to negotiate, or in other words, they want to take the path that is good for the Iranians and bad for the Americans. So they're saying that that's what we should do. Yeah, we should also understand what their side they're on.
The idea that this is going to be a diplomatic success. We can get there. And then suddenly the rug has been pulled from under them.
He never said that. The Turkey and Qatar never said that we can get there. They're obviously saying we hope we can, but what are you reading their mind that they for sure thought that outcome would happen in a successful way for everyone? You're just extrapolating that and trying to instill that in the minds of your viewers because you're biased and you're trying to instill this bias and this nonsense.
I think members of U.S. Congress can say that as well.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, and Congress is going to be a problem for Donald Trump because the War Powers Act is something.
Not going to be a problem at all. There hasn't been a U.S. president that has been restrained by Congress for any wars. Even if a president has crossed the line and should have gone to Congress, nothing ever has come of it. At the end of the, even when it's gone to the Supreme Court, because at the end of the day, even the Supreme Court rules, hey, the president is the commander in chief. At the end of the day, his duty, he has the number one duty out of anyone to protect the American people. So we will go with what he has to say, even if it seems like he should go to Congress. We're gonna leave it to him, even when it went to the Supreme Court. No matter what president it was, the Supreme Court ruled, "Hey, maybe he should have gone to Congress, but at the end of the day, this is so important. The president's gonna make that call." So no, the Congress is not going to be a problem. The Congress has never been a problem for any president. Um, it's largely, let's be real, it's largely symbolic that you have to go to the Congress. It just doesn't happen anymore. It hasn't happened for 100 years at least. As far as the necessity to, maybe presidents have done it, but they've only done it when they know it'll be easy and have a hard, it'd be very quick and it won't get in their way of doing whatever they want in the timeline that they want. So they just go do it just in a symbolic sense. But more and more in the last 20, 30 years, presidents have not done that. They know there's no need to do it. They know they're going to be able to do whatever they want.
Thing that he's just completely ignored. He's not gone to Congress. The
You notice also, or you don't notice, but what you don't know is that whenever the presidents that this guy the failed ones, the bad ones, because that's who he likes. He likes bad U.S. presidents, ones that do bad for the country, fail. He will never say that Obama didn't go to Congress for the Libyan war. He will never say that Biden didn't go to Congress for whatever he wanted to do.
Earliest Congress can meet is going to be Tuesday because of I think there's a recess or something.
Mhm.
But he's also let down the MAGA base, the Make America Great Again, because
That's not true either.
their future
There are some people who are wrong in believing that this is going to be another endless, pointless war. It is a regime change war, but when Donald Trump stood up and said, no more pointless, dumb regime change wars, he said, no more pointless, dumb, endless regime change wars. So there's about 4 different elements in there that all were in that point. And one of them is regime change, war. The other one's pointless, dumb, endless is something that Donald Trump doesn't believe he's doing and something that will not happen, I believe, also in this war. It is not a pointless war. It is not a dumb war. It is not a war that is pointless. There is a point. There's a very smart point to this. It is not dumb. It's intelligent. The outcome is going to be very good for the United States and the West and the world. And it's also not going to be an endless war. We shall see. We don't know that. I don't know that. But I believe that that will not be the case. And that's what makes this different. And some of the people in MAGA, even America First, don't understand this. They don't understand this. That a pointless, endless, dumb regime change war is not the same as a smart, intelligent, successful, limited timeline regime change war. And that's what I would love to get through to people like Tucker Carlson and other people in the America First movement.
furious. They didn't vote for this. They voted for
Please subscribe and like this video. Let's get this channel built up so one day, hopefully, I have the ability to reach out to Tucker, be on his show, and say this to him. And let's see what Tucker says then. He'll have nothing to say.
zero wars. So there's a lot of very disappointed people, but that disappointment is for later. Right now, everybody
You're always going to have disappointed people, even amongst your supporters. As long as you take actions of any kind, there are some people, even your supporters, some of your supporters, a portion of a tiny slice of your supporters will maybe not like that action. The only way you can keep people from liking you is to do nothing, ever.
is more worried about a war spilling over into the region, and it already has.
Iran says
It already has because Iran did that. Let's be straight here. Let's be real here. Something he's just glossing over. If it has spilled over to the extent that it has, that's because of Iran, not because of the United States, not because of Donald Trump, not because of his choices.
all U.S. and Israeli bases and assets across the region are legitimate targets.
Sure.
And that is what we are seeing unfold.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about when it's spilling into the region, are we? We're talking about Iran bombing, sending missiles to 13 other countries, all of which of those countries, other than Israel, said, hey, we're not going to be a part of this. This isn't us. We're just going to be neutral. We're just going to sit back. That was Iran that did that.
So now we're also seeing the reasons why the U.S. was building up its biggest military presence in the region in 2 decades, and why perhaps
Yeah.
3 other U.S. presidents refused to pull the trigger despite all these years of pushing for regime change
Because they were cowards and because they were all talk and no action.
in Iran. And the one who actually did it was Donald J. Trump.
Well, I think Donald Trump's worldview is very much colored by the fact that he's had this success in Venezuela. Venezuela was a victory lap for him. It was almost,
Something that you were on the air saying how terrible it was, how it was going to last forever, was going to change nothing, a bad decision, awful, awful, awful. and now you realize you're wrong, but you never come back on the air and go, you know what, I was wrong. I said all this stuff. I was wrong. You just just move on. Like you didn't say all that.
Drama, television drama in its execution. And he's
I was a television drama. It was like literally everything that was shown was what happened. There wasn't any excessive drama.
got problems going into the midterm elections in the US. His approval ratings not very good.
It's actually almost always the case that any president who goes in the midterm, be that their first or second term, their approval rating goes down and they lose some seats within the House or whatever, even Senate seats. This is not abnormal. So if it happens all the time, what's your point? You don't have a point.
There's the Epstein files. There's a lot of domestic pressure.
Epstein files. I thought we were talking about Iran.
And he wants a win. He wants a quick
Yeah, everybody wants a win as president. They all want quick wins.
win. But this is not the end. And as we saw,
no one says it's the end.
In other regime change operations, Iraq, Afghanistan.
So there was a bunch of failed operations with stupid presidents, had stupid plans, didn't listen to their military leaders, instead wanted to do things that were good for their political aspirations, didn't listen to the military. That means that that's always going to be the case and that every president's going to do that. Even though this president, you yourself will admit, he is unlike any other president. He has done things unlike any other president.
Libya, you name it. This goes on for 15, 20 years. Now, this might not do.
It's never going to do that.
But there's a chance that it...
There's always a chance at anything.
Will. So Donald J. Trump...
It just happens to be the case. The chance is absolutely minute, minuscule, and basically zero.
The
0.0000001 is essentially zero, even though there is a chance. So you're saying there's a chance. Yes, we're saying there's a chance, but it's effectively zero.
Okay. Now...
effectively zero that it's going to go 10 to 15 years. That's absurd.
He is simply disdainful of international rules-based.
If you think this is going to go 10, 15 years, once again, you have demonstrated to everyone out loud in public, you have no idea about Trump and what he's capable of. He'll drop a nuke probably before it goes 10, 15 years. I'm kind of joking, but, let's put it this way. There's more of a chance he drops a nuke than this goes 10, 15 years. That's how little of a chance there is that it goes 10, 15 years. Because there's basically no chance he'll drop a nuke either. It's just 0.0000002 instead of 0.0000001.
Order. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like agreements. He likes ripping them up. He likes doing his own deals because he wants,
like the Iranians,
to reshape the world in his own view.
Like every president and every leader in the world.
So the clues have always been there that if there was a president that was going to do something so radical, it would be this one.
Then you're going to come on here and talk about how surprised you are and how crazy it is.
That doesn't make it right, but it does make it a reality.
It's a reality, no kidding. Thank you.
Something so radical, though, in thinking of why it's
radical now for a U.S. president to back up his words with actions. That's how bad things have gone in the last 40 years with presidents. That now people like this think it's radical for a president to do as he say and says what he does.
so radical. I'm wondering if you could help us pick that apart, because what we often hear is that we don't.
By the way, I kind of agree with that it is radical in the sense that every single other president and most world leaders are bullshit artists that are all talk and no action, which is sad, disgusting, and why we have the problems we do today.
Know the capacity and capability of Iran and its offensive or defensive
She doesn't know shit about that.
capabilities when it comes to what could happen.
The only thing she knows about that is what other people tell her.
What are you even, I don't want to say predicting, because
This guy doesn't know anything either.
who knows? But what's going through your mind?
Well, predicting anything is a fool's errand. Here's the
At least he's honest.
Here's the deal. Iran is 92 million people. It has a structure that is parallel to Iranian governmental structure. These are organizations that are there to ensure the Islamic Revolution survives anything but an occupation of Iran.
Yeah, not really news.
And it's working. It's part of the.
You think it's working? You think the Iranians, you think this is all going swimmingly for the Iranian government? Really? What does it take for it to go bad? If not now. If not, almost the entire navy is sunk in the bottom of the water, the Persian Gulf, the ocean, the sea, wherever they are. Excuse me. Every single boat nearly is on the bottom of the ocean. They have effectively no planes left. They have gone down to 1% of the missiles they launched compared to what they were launching the first couple days. Their leader is dead. Their top entire leadership in every branch of the military, intelligence services, all the people that are there to make sure things don't go badly. They're all dead. Their second in commands, a lot of them are dead. Some of their thirds in command are dead. What does bad look like to you, if not this?
Thinking and the ideology of the Islamic Revolution, that it survives at all costs. So that's where that's that.
That's literally what the Iranians are hoping to and have, and the only thing they have is that when they're all dead, that their radical views somehow survive, and there's a bunch of zealots, extremists, and stupid people who carry on the same views that got the other guys killed.
Makes Iran almost completely different to any other state. It's an ideology based in a religion and a resistance.
Actually, what makes it different than any other Islamic state, any other Islamic country, is that the people don't want to be under the rule of Islam. They actually are not the people like the Gazans or the West Bankers, Palestinians, the Iraqis, the Arabs, essentially, because these are Persians. They are not the kind of people who will not take a settlement, a solution, a deal because they don't want to lose. They'll just keep going right to their death, generation after generation after generation, and live in shit and live in squalor like Arabs do, like the rest of the Muslim countries want to do. Persians are not that. They're actually smart people. We're not talking about the leadership here. We're talking about the 92 million he's talking about. There's only about a few 100,000 that are actually working for the government and believing in this crap. They are, aside from those zealots within the government, the rest of the people are like, hey, we just want a better life. It actually doesn't matter what system we live under. We just want a better life. The one we're living under for 47 years sucks. It failed. It's terrible. We don't want to live under it. We don't like Islam. We never wanted it. We never asked for it. It was put upon us.
And so that's going to be difficult to topple. Now,
It's always difficult to topple an ideology. Look at communism. It's been around forever. You still have idiots that are being born every day, eventually supporting communism.
if you topple the
Doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Doesn't mean if you do, if you let communism or Islamic zealotry succeed or Islam spread across the world, that's not a much worse world and you have to fight it.
regime,
Yes, there are some things that take a long, 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 long time to defeat. And sometimes you don't even know if you're ever going to defeat it, but you have to fight it because if you let it go, if you let it succeed, it's going to be worse for everybody. It's going to be hell on earth. That is communism. That is Islam ruling the world. It doesn't mean just because it's going to be difficult or even maybe impossible to one day get rid of that you shouldn't fight it and you shouldn't always keep fighting it.
and another regime rises, another government is put into place, let's say by the Americans, supported by the Americans.
He sounds so disappointed, huh? If that happened, he sounds so like, oh, what? Even if this horrible thing happened where the Islamic regime in Iran fell, even if the Americans got their way, heaven forbid, like this guy's just revealing himself over and over again.
Will that work? Well, no, because in order to get there,
No, meaning like I don't want it to work, is what he's saying.
there has to be effectively a civil war, which is what we saw in Iraq, Afghanistan.
Effectively a civil war. What there's a such thing as a civil war, and then there's no civil war. What is effectively a civil war? I mean, there isn't too many scenarios that actually happen where it's effectively a civil war, where it is, but it isn't. You could actually make the argument that almost every country has effectively a civil war, depending on how you define civil war. Is it a kinetic civil war? Is it a violent civil war? Is it a civil war where the country's divided, and they vote and they just vote in the way they do, and they're all split and they don't like each other? But it's not a kinetic civil war. It's not a violent civil war. So yes, it could effectively be a civil war because every country is, in essence, living under an effective civil war, unless you have a country that agrees on every single thing, including which leader they should have, and that doesn't exist. So yeah, I guess everybody's in effectively a civil war.
And all the other countries. So the IRGC will disappear off to the mountains, wherever, regroup, come back, and they'll
Necessarily. There's been plenty of examples where you've defeated a government and the government didn't go into the mountains, didn't go into hiding. It's happened recently with some cases because you had stupid leaders, stupid presidents making dumb decisions, not letting the military win the war. But that doesn't mean that that's going to happen. If there's ever a time and ever a person where this won't happen again, I make the argument that it's going to be under President Donald Trump. I say that by evidence of what he said throughout his presidency, 1 and 2, before his presidency, going back to the 80s, and also what he's done.
fight whatever government you put in place because they'll still have the weapons.
Persians aren't like that. Like I said, this is different. The Arabs, Islam has been hoisted onto the Persians. They don't want it. The Persians are converting to Christianity more than any other Islamic country. Islam has been hoisted upon them by a gun, by the sword, which is exactly how Islam has spread throughout the world in every place it's gone, by the sword. It has never done so voluntarily. The Persians don't want Islam, and they are not Arabs. Arabs are the kind of people, sorry to say, they're so stubborn and they refuse to be pragmatic and be common sense, and they celebrate death more than they do life. Persians aren't like this. That they will fight, even if their whole life and their children's and their grandchildren's is absolute shit, because they simply don't want to say we lost. That's the Arabs for you. That's a lot of Muslims for you. Most Muslims. The Persians don't want to be Muslims. They're not the same kind of Muslims, even if they are Muslims right now, and were forced to be. They're also not Arabs.
And they'll still have stockpiles. This is not, this is what we've seen in every regime change.
The Persians are not every regime. They're not Arabs. They're not your typical Muslims nation.
Right? There is a civil war.
This guy doesn't recognize that the differences between cultures, the difference between peoples.
So you've got to deal with that.
He needs to actually, he needs to go and take like a first-year university history course
as well.
One.
You see what happened there? He was just getting started making some sort of argument. This is a bad pause. This guy looks terrible here. He was just starting to make some sort of argument. He was getting ready. He was getting preface. He was like, so you see what's happening here. And then it just cut and it was done. Because here's what you got to see into this. He didn't have any argument. So Al Jazeera went, oh, the rest of this was fucking nonsense. We're going to cut it right there. And we're not actually going to let him explain the logic behind the declaration he just made because it's ridiculous. Do you see what just happened there? He was all getting all warmed up to tell you why he believed in the thing he's saying, but he didn't get to it. He did get to it, but Al Jazeera was like, that's kind of dumb. There's nothing really there. This is going to sound bad. This is going to not convince our audience of what we're trying to convince them. So let's just scrap the rest of what he said. We'll edit it right here, and we'll pretend him just declaring it while he's saying he's going to explain it and then doesn't. That let's just hope the audience didn't catch on. And I guarantee you a lot of the audience didn't catch on.
One of the reasons that I thought it was really important for our audiences to hear from you, Imran, is because you have reported.
You called him Iran. Yeah, because she's got Iran on her mind. She loves Iran. I'm just kidding, but I think that's actually there's something there probably.
From Iran. You've reported from Israel. You've reported from Iraq. You are now living in Doha. And You and I are old enough to remember when another American president stood in front of the world to declare liberation from a dictator. And I'm looking at something you wrote.
He loves bringing up when U.S. presidents like Bush declared victory and was wrong and looked stupid. She loves it. She loves bringing it up. Again, tells you what side she's on.
On social media more than a month ago during the lead up to this. So you posted on Instagram, the US doesn't follow up on regime change. I can't see why it would be different in the case of Iran.
It's not going to be. Duh. Like, Trump says he's not going to go into nation building. Like, why would this be a surprise? Why are you even saying this? Yes, he won't go and follow up on regime change. He's already said a million times he doesn't believe in nation building. They're going to topple the regime, do what's right for America, and then whatever happens, happens. But whatever happens is going to be better for America. And they're going to make sure of it. And that doesn't necessarily involve building up the next regime, building the government up. If it has to be, it has to be. But there's other ways of doing this. You could topple a regime and you don't have to own it. Remember that line? I think it was Colin Powell, if you break it, you own it. That's what Colin Powell thinks. And a bunch of other people around him, and then generally speaking, everyone, because the media pushed it, said, oh, so true. Well, it's actually not true.
You've touched on why what the echoes and the parallels might be and might not be here.
By the way, we only got about 5 more minutes, so hang in there.
But can you elaborate on what you see happening when it comes to that follow-up or lack thereof?
Iraq was 20 million people. Iran is 92. Iraq was in shambles. Saddam was on the ropes already because of the Western sanctions. He was very unpopular.
And Iran's wasn't. Iran's not. Their currency has gone down 99% since 47 years ago when they took power, when this regime took power. The currency is down 99%. They are by far more ostracized in the world than they've ever been in their existence of this regime.
Deeply unpopular.
And you're going to make the case that Saddam was in a uniquely bad position, therefore easier to topple, less hated, was just in dire straits over there. But the Iranians are not. You just saw 2 months ago, the people in Iran were in the streets for the 400th time, doing all of that and dying in the thousands because of how unhappy they are and were and have continued to be. But somehow Iraq was on the ropes and Iran was just fine.
Within the region, didn't really have any allies. You have in Iran a society that was functioning.
No,
Now,
it wasn't.
Were there problems? Absolutely. Was there a protest movement? Absolutely. Did thousands die, in that crackdown that the Iranian government did? Yes, they did. But
that, again, read into this, what kind of individual this is. Did thousands die? Yeah, but but I'm about to say something. Pay attention to this part, not that other part, not the last part. Thousands died. There was their problems, just problems, just problems. Just problems. We'll just put the label problems on everything that was going on around. Just problems. Nothing big. Nothing really serious. No. Just problems. Some problems. Just problems. Did thousands die? Did thousands get machine gunned down on the streets for saying out loud they don't like their government? Did the thousands die, get machine gunned down because they said, hey, we don't like the state of this, and I get to have my free speech. As a human being, I get to say this out loud. No one's going to tell me, because a human being, no one gets to shut another human being up. Did that all happen? Did another few thousands of people get kidnapped and are in prison in Iran right now because they decide they want to speak up, they want to speak their mind? Yeah, but let's hear the but. Let's hear how none of that is a big deal. What comes after the but is a lot more valuable and a lot more for you to pay attention to.
they're not on the ropes. The IRGC is very strong. The Iraqi
Sure.
army, the Republican Guard, is not and was not at that time.
They weren't strong. They weren't even around. They actually went underground right away.
But the parallels of regime change and an American president who has put a military industrial complex at the core of its foreign policy. It's that old saying, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The only real
Well, there's a lot of cuts there. This dude was babbling for a while, and he didn't really have anything interesting to say. And Jizzy said, we got to cut all this shit out. Not very good. Doesn't really make sense. Kind of dumb.
difference, and this is startling to me, the only
Let's hear
real
it.
difference
Let's
is
hear
the
it.
lead up.
The lead
In the
up.
lead up to
The
the
lead up.
Iraq War, we were sold lies. Those lies were repeated in the media. You know, the lies that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. We didn't have a chance here. Donald Trump went from 0 to 100 miles an hour with bypassing the media.
So you say that what Bush did was bad, he lied, and that Trump didn't do it, and that's like worse?
And not getting the American media to sell the Iran war for him.
Because you can't trust the American media. The American media lies. All they want to do is make him look bad so that he loses and is overthrown and goes down in disgrace. Why would he trust the media? If you don't think this man has learned what the media is out to do with regards to him, by now, I mean, good God, help you. Obviously, Donald Trump has learned. He learned real quick. Why would he trust the media? Why would he go to the media? Look what the media is doing right now. The media is doing everything possible to make this be a failure for Trump so he loses as many seats as possible in the midterms so that he loses all kinds of power and sway and ability to govern, and then also loses his reputation as an effective president. That's what the media wants to do. That's what it's doing right now. Right now. So why would he go to the media?
He did it himself on Truth Social. And
Because he can't trust the media.
that's the biggest difference between the wars in Iraq and the war in...
The biggest difference also is that we lived in a different time back then. That was 2003 with George Bush going into Iraq. That was a time when the media had some semblance of being able to be even slightly bit trusted to tell the truth, even slightly bit patriotic towards their country over their party, the media's party, the Democratic Party. The media supports the Democratic Party at a 93% rate. Now all they do is, or a speaker for the Democrat Party. That wasn't as much the case back then. It was largely the case, but not even as much. So yes, times have changed. We realize now on the right as conservatives, there is no way we can trust the media at all. At all. We will never go to the media. We will never ask them to do anything for us because they never will, other than try to kill us. Kill us conservatives, kill the Republican Party, kill everything patriotic Americans stand for.
Iran is that you just bypass the media now. You do it on social, you do it yourself, and you do it on social
Definitely.
media. You know, the first Gulf
Called learning a lesson.
War was the CNN war. That's what they called it because CNN was broadcasting it live. The second Iraq war in 2003 was the Al Jazeera war because Al Jazeera was there in every single city. Well, this Iran war is going to be the Truth Social war because it was...
No, it's not. That's stupid. That even sounds stupid.
Declared on Truth Social, and Donald Trump didn't need anybody to sell it for him in the media. He just did it himself.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's called leadership. That's remarkable. That's amazing. That's what you call a leader. That's what you call a fantastic leader. And by the way, if you could just sell it yourself, that means people bought in. Obviously, there's people that are going to disagree, the people who hate him, the people who vote for the other party, of course. But the fact that he sold it himself and doesn't need the media, that's what point are you making? Because you just made the point in favor of Donald Trump's leadership and abilities. This is why there's so much cut out from this video by Al Jazeera, because this guy is struggling to make the case on behalf of America haters, on behalf of religious Islamic zealots like he is and his listeners are.
And Ron, we're having this heady conversation. But of course, we can't have this conversation without talking about the people,
Yeah.
whether that's the people who are in Qatar with you and
Mm.
getting alerts on their phone.
Conversation's been going for 20 minutes. They're going to spend the last 2 minutes talking about the people, and they're all like, "Well, we can't have it without the people. We can't talk about this without the people." You're going to give the people like the last breadcrumb and say like, "Well, people are important."
Of incoming missile strikes, whether that is, of course, the people in Iran, people that you've met and you've talked to and reported on. We know the death toll in that attack, and one of the first mass casualty attacks of this war was an Iranian girls' school. At the time of this interview, that death toll has risen to 148. So at least 148 people, little kids, little girls.
These people, both of these people right here, they haven't said a word about a single death the Iranian government, this Islamic regime, and every other Islamic regime and terrorist group that they have no problems with. They don't say a word about who they kill.
Killed.
I mean, that's the most ironic thing about this, that Donald Trump declares war on the Islamic Revolution.
By the way, every single Persian I've ever met that I know right now, every single one of them is for this war. Every single one supports Donald Trump. Every single one of them wants this regime to fall. Not a single one of them has said a word about the school because they recognize that that is unfortunate. It's a terrible thing. You obviously don't want any children to die, but it's going to happen. The people that want this regime out, smart Iranians and Persians, they understand that for them to overthrow a bloody, blood spilling organization like this Islamic government, it's going to be ugly. There's going to be a lot of losses, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do the thing that you need to do because the Iranian government also relies on some innocent people dying and them showing this to people and going, "Oh, you don't want to get rid of us. Look at there's some innocent people dying." Yeah, that's like what Satan does.
And, one of the things he's talked about in the past is women being forced to wear headscarves. And then you've killed women before they even had the chance to put on a headscarf. You've killed little girls before they even
Yeah.
had a chance to do.
That is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. You like certain people, and because something happened that you didn't want it to, those people didn't get to grow up to enjoy something else that you don't really like those people. Is that your point? This guy's an imbecile.
That. Now, at what point there'll be
You can be for women or against women wearing the headscarves because they're forced to when they don't want to. You could be aligned with their freedom not to do that and still feel like it's unfortunate that they died before they could ever be forced to wear the thing you don't feel they have to and that they don't want to. What is your point? This is just so dumb. This is so manipulative.
at some point there'll be a justification for this, and it'll be collateral damage, and it was a mistake, or they may just sweep it under the carpet.
Or you could just say, but when you said thousands of people were killed in the streets by the Islamic regime, but wasn't that your justification when you go, but doesn't forget about that. I'm about to tell you something more important, but
I remember being in Tehran, and I was with a friend of mine, and we were just having coffee and talking about, because
plotting a terrorist strike against somebody, probably.
the threat from America has been there for a very long time. Almost after the Iraq War in 2003, people started talking about maybe we need to go to Iran next, right? So the threat's been there for a very
Yeah, when the Iranian regime took over the American embassy, the day they took power and held a couple dozen Americans hostage for 444 days, the first act they did in power, you want to twist this around and go, Oh, it was America that had a problem with that regime. They've had the problem. They're the ones that don't like these people. Okay.
A very long time. You know, and he said to me, my friend said to me, Imran, what you have to realize is that we as Iranians might criticize the Islamic Revolution. We might criticize the government. We hate the unemployment. We hate the sanctions. We hate all of this. But if you attack our country, we're still going to stand up for it.
No, that's not true. You're going to stand up for it if you don't have a problem with all the things the Iranian government has done to the extent that all of the other people do. See, his friend is not like the rest of the Iranians and Persians. He's a guy that doesn't like imperfect Islamic governments slightly, but he'll still want the Islamic government there. So he wants this government there, even at the expense of the sad things that they do that this guy would prefer not happen, like unemployment. He's like, well, I don't like the unemployment, but you know what? I'll stick up for this evil government. You have Satan as your king, your ruler, and this guy's point is that because Satan is your leader is one of your people. You came from the tribe Satan did. You're going to be like, well, he's my guy. He's my Satan. He's on my tribe. No, a person with integrity who has morals will say, no, it's Satan. I don't give a shit if he's my Satan, if he comes from my tribe, if he's a representative of my country. That's dumb. This guy's dumb. He's making a stupid point. He's making a point that he's relying on stupid people to go, oh, yeah, that's true. He's my guy. Even though he's terrible, he's awful. He does awful things. He murders people. He's murdered my family, but he's on my team. So I'm going to stick up for them. Who thinks like that? Nobody. Insane people think like that. Stupid people think like that.
And, you know, I was reminded of that when I was watching some of the footage today from Inqilab Square in Tehran, where one guy said, if you want this country, you have to come and get it, over my dead body.
Every single Persian I know right now is cheering this military action on. They are so excited. I kid you not. I kid you not. Every single Persian I know, and you could see it around the world with demonstrations around the world in various cities, Persians out there, Iranians out there saying, they're dancing, they're crying. This is the best thing that's ever happened. They say it out loud. Go talk to somebody who is Persian, Iranian, and they will say the same thing to you. I challenge you, go talk to them. Looks like these guys are done finally. This guy's finally done spewing garbage. Yeah, that's it. What a take. What a way to end it for this dude. On possibly the stupidest point he ever said in this entire thing. Anyways, guys, it was awesome. I'm going to be covering Al Jazeera. We're going to be watching their broadcasts, which is fun. Trust me, it's fun. You're going to see what these people are like. You're going to see why they're able to brainwash so many Muslim people, Arabs, Middle Easterners. We're going to do this more than once. Not going to be every show, of course, but we're going to do it once in a while. This was a good one. I hope you had a good time. Please like, subscribe. Join me again. Comment in the comment section, whatever questions you have. Let's build this channel up, please. I want to get it to be 1 million, 2 million, 5 million subscribers, so we can have debates with other YouTubers and all kinds of stuff. We're just getting started. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon. We're out.